This video is sponsored by MPB. If you're a photographer, you probably see the world in frames, right? Light, movement, stillness, every moment presents a chance to document something extraordinary. But what if I told you that one of the greatest filmmakers of all time thought just like a photographer, only his images moved through time rather than freezing it? Andrei Tarkovsky's films aren't just films. They're meditations on memory, light, and the passage of time, all things that matter deeply to us photographers. His work is a masterclass, in my opinion, in cinematic photography, visual storytelling, and the emotional power of a single frame. In this video, hopefully I'll be able to show you why every photographer should watch Tarkovsky's films in 2025, and why you can learn from his approach to slow down, seeing differently, and documenting more than what's just in front of you. So whether you're a documentary photographer, a fine art photographer, street photographer, whatever you might be, I think the movies of Andrei Tarkovsky might inspire you to not only see, but also compose and feel the world around you quite differently, more deeply, I would say. So grab a drink, make yourself comfortable, and let's dive into a video fully dedicated into the cinema of Andrei Tarkovsky. Tarkovsky once said, quote, "Cinema's greatest asset is time." In fact, he went on to call filmmaking, quote, "sculpting in time," believing that the true power of cinema laid in its ability to manipulate time, not just to move from one moment to the next, but rather to dwell inside a moment, to let it expand and reveal its hidden meanings and significance. In his films, a single shot might often last for minutes, not just because something of importance is happening, but because something far more profound is unfolding beneath the surface. As he wrote in his book, Sculpting in Time, quote, "Time is of the essence. The image must reveal the life of the spirit, not just the facts of the world." And so for us photographers, this is really a radical invitation, in my opinion, because we're often so conditioned to chasing the idea of the decisive moment, to click at just the right instant. But what Tarkovsky reflects is this importance of lingering on observing and resisting the urge to rush. Instead, let time breathe within the frame. Tarkovsky's camera does precisely that. It waits, it watches, and metaphorically, it's almost like inviting you to listening into the world he's showing us. I think two photographers that do this in very different ways are actually Joel Sternfeld, whose work I actually featured on the channel not that long ago, and his use of irony, the layers, really invites us to stay in with his images. And another photographer in a very different way would be Alexei Titarenko with his street photography that is rather unconventional. I think he invites us because they meditate on society, they meditate on issues of the world, I think, in my opinion, of course, and they meditate on this passage of time, on the idea of rushing through it. And so I think that these two photographers can be two great examples to study and let link with this idea, or my interpretation of what the ideas of Andrei Tarkovsky are in terms of seeing and preparing the frame, or composing in this case. His use of natural light is also nothing short of quote-unquote photographic too, in my opinion. In Nostalgia, the famous candle scene is a meditation on patience and presence. Again, in my eyes, because the slow flickering flame, the gentle reflections on wet stone, the way light bends and calmly shifts through the scenes, makes every element feel tactile and deeply emotional. In Stalker, the camera goes through abandoned spaces, catching the play of rain, the glow of firelight, the way mist softens the edges of the image. And in The Mirror, dreamlike transitions really blur the boundaries of what I believe are memory and reality, with light flickering through trees, water, and glass in ways that feel both familiar but also quite magical. And I think photographers can learn so much from this approach because while some great images might be about the speed or perfect timing, the essence of others lies in their stillness and in this idea of letting the moment unfold and about giving the image room to breathe. If you look at a single frame from an Andrei Tarkovsky film, you'll notice something remarkable. Each image is composed with the precision and care of a master painter or photographer. Tarkovsky's frames are never accidental. They are deliberate, in my opinion, and he once said actually something along the lines of, quote, "The image is not a certain meaning expressed by the director, but an entire world reflected as in a drop of water." This idea that every corner of the frame holds meaning is something photographers can learn from, and actually something that is preached and reflected in other photographers we've studied on the channel, such as William Eggleston and his concept of seeing democratically. Adding to this is Tarkovsky's use of symmetry, which in my eyes is more than just a visual trick, pun intended. It's a way of drawing the viewer into the heart of the image, creating a sense of balance and calm that allows emotion to brew and to naturally emerge. In Stalker, for example, the camera often lingers in doorways, corridors, and landscapes that are perfectly centered, that draw us in both by its mystery and I think by the tension of the scene itself. And this is similar to how photographers have used leading lines and negative space to guide the viewer's attention and evoke a mood. An example I can think of is Alex Webb and how he composes his images. Every element is in the conversation. Every empty space is filled with possibility. And reflections, in my opinion, are also another key, I'd say, characteristic of Andrei Tarkovsky's films that I'd like to reflect upon because I think there's something there for us to take from. Whether it's water, glass, or mirrors, these surfaces create layers like a frame within a frame, adding depth and ambiguity. In the mirror, reflections blur the boundaries, like I said before, between memory and reality, but also between past and present, blending time in on itself. A quick reminder that for us photographers, that the world rarely is what it seems on the surface. By using foreground-background interaction and layering, we can tell richer and more nuanced stories, just like we've recently seen and I've said before about the photography of Joel Sternfeld. In this context, we need to talk about texture too. Tarkovsky's films are filled with the roughness of stone, the fluidity of water currents, the warmth of fire, fog, or smoke, each texture adding emotional weight and truthfulness to the scene. He believed that the image must reveal the life of the spirit, not just the facts of the world, as I said before, and this is a great takeaway. Composition isn't just about aesthetics, it's ultimately about emotion. And Tarkovsky's approach to composition is, I think, rather unique because he saw the frame as a space where meaning could be revealed and not imposed. As he wrote in his book, Sculpting in Time, quote, "The allotted function of art is not, as if often assumed, to put across ideas, to propagate thoughts, to serve as example. The aim of art is to prepare a person for death, to plow and harrow his soul, rendering it capable of turning to good." For photographers, this means that every decision, where to place your camera, how to balance light and shadow, what to include and what to leave out, can really transform an ordinary scene into something extraordinary. As we've been talking about Tarkovsky so far and how he treats every corner of the frame so meticulously and democratically, I would say, giving everything in every aspect of the image a lot of importance, I think it's also introducing of the thought of how our creative choices are very much influenced by the tools that we have at our disposition. And so I think it's a reminder, therefore, that the tools we use can really shape the way we see and create. So if you're thinking about updating your setup or exploring new creative directions, I'd like to briefly tell you about MPB, a platform trusted by visual storytellers worldwide to buy, sell, and trade used camera gear. MPB takes care to check every camera and lens, and they offer a free extended warranty to ensure peace of mind with every purchase. Their circular model lets you give your gear a second life or find the piece that elevates your work, making it possible to pursue your own vision with both quality and, of course, sustainability in mind. And the whole process of using their platform is rather simple. I'm just going to use my camera here as an example. Say I want to sell this camera. This is Leica M6 or whatever lens or something like that. I can go to my phone and I can just, write in the details that are more relevant, of course, to the condition of the camera, the model, the exact model, the make, etc. And then, of course, I'll get a quote from MPB. You are also free to add any item that you'd like to trade if that is your, intention of trading. But of course, if you want to buy, then you have an extensive catalog that is constantly being updated with, everything from cinema cameras, lenses, studio equipment. So links to MPB will be down below. And since we're talking about, composition, I'd like us to then focus on how, what tools and what techniques Tarkovsky used to not only capture images, but actually capture moments that linger far beyond the screen and stay with you, in my opinion. And so for me, watching an Andrei Tarkovsky film, it's almost like stepping into a memory or a dreamlike state. Because the images are hazy, the timeline is often non-linear, and the emotions are deeply intimate. In The Mirror, perhaps his most personal film, he compiles fragments of memory, family, childhood, weaving them together into what feels like a living photo album, with each frame reflecting on ideas of nostalgia, loss, and longing. So Tarkovsky therefore shows us that emotional truth can be blurry, suggestive, and elusive. Unlike many of the images we probably see these days, they are very perfect in detail and quite sharp. And this is a powerful lesson, if you ask me, for those of us that like to particularly capture the poetry of the everyday life and the emotional weight of in-between moments, what we call interludes. In Mirror, the camera lingers on the woman's face, on raindrops sliding down a window, on a field shimmering in the wind. These scenes are completely not about action or plot. They're just about being present, about evoking a different time, perhaps memory, and it's a different way of showing this idea of passage of time. And this lingering, this exploration of the longing feeling is what gives his images their haunting power. Not just, I would say, in his movies, but also in his Polaroids. And this is something that photographers can definitely strive for in their work. Whether you're drawn to documentary, fine art, or quote-unquote cinematic photography, like we've seen with Jeff Wall or Alex Prager, Tarkovsky's approach to memory and emotion can help you see the world in a new way. Not just as is, but as it feels like. And lastly, I think that Tarkovsky's films are filled with a sense of respect for the natural order of things. Earth, water, and fire function not just as visual motifs in his movies, but also can be seen as living presences that shape the emotional landscape of his stories. In every frame, nature isn't just a backdrop, it's a character almost. Because these moments are not just beautiful, they are quietly transcendent, inviting us to pause and reflect. Andrei Tarkovsky's use of natural elements, therefore, is never accidental. He believed that the world is charged with spiritual significance, and that the artist's task is to see and honor that. In Stalker, the long, slow tracking shots through overgrown landscapes makes us feel precisely that weight of the earth beneath our feet. And in The Mirror, I think that the wind moving through tall grass or a horse standing in the mist becomes a symbol of memory and a longing for a time that's perhaps been lost. This is photography at its most elemental. It's about looking for meaning in the mundane, but also about recognizing that in freezing a moment in time, photography can communicate way more beyond the actual surface of that image. And if you've seen Tarkovsky's films, perhaps you could agree with me or not, let me know down in the comments. But I think that if you haven't, a good place to start would be with Ivan's Childhood. I think it's a more accessible movie. Some of the compositions are really, really beautiful, and I would recommend watching it as a starting point, and then maybe perhaps moving towards Stalker or Solaris, even though these are more slower paced movies. If you ask me, my favorite movie by Tarkovsky would be Andrei Rublev, and that's probably my favorite movie of all time, if I had to pinpoint one. So thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. It truly means a lot. Let me know if you enjoyed these types of videos down below. I will be dropping more videos like this, and not so much with a focus on photography, but on my second channel about filmmaking. I want to make more movies about that, about other filmmakers, and change the pace what I've been doing there so far. So if you're interested, consider then subscribing and, checking out the second channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.